Hello to my live audience and those who are who are going to be watching this on the replay. This is The Critics, and I'm Vinay Raman, your host, and I'm very excited about our conversation today. But I want to start out first because you saw the title of this episode, and that is Boosting Workplace Profitability and the Power of Positive Emotion. I want to ask a question for you, and I want you to start to think about this as setting the stage for this whole conversation. And that is, what holds you back from being a better leader? I will tell you that's a question I've spent a lot of time thinking about myself. And this podcast here, this conversation, the panel of experts that I've brought along to make this a richer conversation is all about how I learned some of this stuff and some of their insights to kind of help you get to that point as well. It took me a long time, and I hope it doesn't take everyone else as long as well. So to get us rolling, I want to ask a question, and I'd like to get interaction from our audience. I'd like to see if you could wave your magic wand. Would you like to be a better leader? Would you like to be able to just say, hey, I know what it takes to get there? If you desire to be a better leader, type in the comments for me. Just type, and it should be on the right-hand side there. Just type a Y if that's what you're here for, because if you are, this is the right place. So type a Y in the comments if you'd like to become a better leader and why, and that's the reason you're here. Because my goal as a host is to give you some insights and answers by the end of the show as to how you can get there. My panel is going to share a lot of insights and steps and how they see it and how they've gone through things to get there themselves. Because a number of years ago, I didn't know how to do it by myself, because it's people that make the world move. And once I started to understand people more deeply, I got better and better at being a leader. So this podcast will focus on how to improve that leadership, supported with data. And the best part is you'll start to enjoy that journey more. So hopefully share a little bit of what I've learned, but then also from the panel. So let me introduce myself real quick, just to tell you who I am, just a quick snapshot into who I am. And that is, I'm Vinay Raman. I'm a 6-time serial entrepreneur, and I am the CEO of Carmo, a behavioral intelligence company. We take data and help leaders understand more about their people more empathetically. I've got 27 years of experience with degrees in artificial intelligence, machine learning, math, and computer science. You can't have a conversation for 5 minutes today without artificial coming up these days. But I want to introduce some of my panel so you can get a sense of who they are and what they're all about. So first thing, I want to start out with Adam Carace. Adam, am I saying that right? I keep confusing myself and I'm saying Carace properly.
Yes, that's correct. I don't know who messes up more, my last name or your first name.
well, I might put money on the fact that it might be my first name. Adam is a second-generation owner of a family-owned and operated business with his wife, Courtney Carace, and his sister, Amanda Forrestal. He has 2 boys, aged 9 and 7, named Jack and Jameson. And what I like about Adam is, and I've known Adam for probably better part of 2.5, maybe 3 years now. I've kind of been able to see from the outside sort of how this journey has been going for Adam, kind of sort of a third party looking in through the window. His journey through the business ranks has been a dynamic one. I don't think it was one that he'd expected and went the way he wanted. So he's touched multiple different diverse roles within the company that span from everything from an on-road technician to a sales presence to now where he's the owner of the company. Multifaceted background I think really attests to his comprehensive understanding and every facet of the enterprise and getting along with people. We're going to put a link in the comments right now so you can click on a bio that'll tell you more about Adam if you want to find out more about him. But Adam, did I do some justice to sort of your story and who you are?
Absolutely. You're right. I started family business, so I've been in it since I usually say about 3 years old with the magnifying glass and ants. So I've been here. I've done every position. I really enjoy what I do. But now I'm in a visionary role for those who know EOS, and I'm just really enjoying growing and bringing new ideas to the business.
And I would encourage you, Adam, throughout the course of this to share some of those stories about kind of those transitions and kind of understanding people, because I think that's what this whole episode is all about, is understanding people and kind of where they're coming from. And as you stepped from that technician role all the way up to the CEO of the company, there have been some shifts in thinking and perspective. And that brings me to Hammoud, who gave me a word. I don't know if you know this, Mohamed. Probably about 2.5 years ago, you put a post out on LinkedIn and you said it's a shift, not in mindset, but a heart set. I don't know if you know how impactful that comment was to me, because I said, gosh, yeah, it's right. It's bigger than mindset. It's this heart set. This more expansive place. So I think it's probably been about 2.5 years that I've known Mohamed as well. I want to tell you a little bit about Mohamed. Mohamed is the father to 3 beautiful children, partner of 24 years to a wonderful wife, engaging and experienced facilitator, as well as a keynote speaker. He combines transformative leadership and executive coaching background to help business execs and senior leaders maximize their influence and accelerate their leadership potential. So while Adam has taken this journey through an organization and seeing what it is, Mohamed has done that as well, but now he's coaching organizations. And I think the perspectives that we're going to get are going to be really, really insightful here, paired with some of the visuals that we're going to show you here. He was a leader with a tech company since 1999. He founded Desire to Lead in 2017 that offers small and mid-sized companies, organizations, customized solutions to develop their next generation of leaders. Mohamed, did I do justice to you in just a couple of lines?
You humbled me. I love the way that you started out by referencing the importance of our family when you spoke about Adam's 2 sons and my 3 children and wife. And it really comes down to who you are at home, who you show up when you have the ability to be most authentically you. He can help you become a better leader when you're leading people who aren't used to seeing the authenticity in you. And I think this is something that we're going to touch upon later on today. So looking forward to the conversation.
Well, that's actually a fantastic jumping off point too, because I always like to share a little bit of a story that sets the tone for how I was thinking about it. And the fact that you said family, which is almost exactly this story. I'd like to hear from the audience, those who are listening in. When you think about business and when you think about family, does it occur to you how important sort of your emotions about how you feel about your family, your friends, your relatives, and how that weighs? Do you see that connection between how that weighs and what your performance in business is? Again, love a simple answer. Yeah, I would say yes, put a Y in family, or no in family. If that's not the case, I'd love to understand what goes through your mind. What are you feeling as you hear that connection of family and business, or your personal life and your business life? Because I think that's something I realized, is that at the end of the day, what gets me out of bed every day is I have some desires, some ambitions for myself, but I've got 3 kids, 14, 13, and 10. And I've got a wife that sometimes I really did marry up. I know this is public, but I don't think she's listening. I got lucky there. And it's that which drives me every day. It's funny because that's the whole topic of this conversation, is that emotion, right? That emotion is what gets me out of bed and provides that fire and that fuel to get up every single day and do it again. So I'd like to fire it out to sort of the panel here. Mohamed, I'll start with you. Talk to me about emotion, right? This power of this positive emotion and kind of how it affects the workplace. What are your thoughts? Help me make that connection and make the audience make that connection.
Well, you've used the word emotion now 5 times, and I'll tell you, it's a word that we don't use often or often enough in the workplace. People think that we should have different personas, who we are at home or where we feel most authentically ourselves, most comfortable in our skin, and who we are when we show up in a professional setting, whether we're networking, signing business deals, helping people in the organization and our communities. We think we shouldn't bring our whole selves to that equation. And because we're afraid of how people might interpret our emotional intelligence or lack of, and our social intelligence, right? So when we start understanding the role of emotions and emotional intelligence and social intelligence in a work setting, we start to feel a lot more comfortable in our skins. We're not afraid to use words like love and compassion and empathy, because we realize that they are the root of what creates a strong tree that supports the organizational's growth. If you don't have a leader who shows up authentically, comfortable talking about emotion, interpreting emotion, setting the stage where people feel psychologically safe to have these important conversations, then you have people who are cold, frigid, afraid to make mistakes, stiff. And imagine when you're stiff, you're not flexible. You break things easily. So that metaphor that I'm using there is we want people to relax. We want people to feel comfortable. We want them to be able to share and to grow, make mistakes, and learn from them. And when they understand the power of emotion and interpreting their emotions, understanding them, helping them situate where emotion takes a role in the workplace. It's not everything, but it certainly is the thing that connects our mindset to our heart set. And I think that's really critical these days because we work in dispersed remote work environments. Think of how we create business deals these days. When you have a conversation that's void of true emotion and understanding how the intelligence behind our emotions come into play to create trust and strong relationships, you just don't have an authentic connection and a meaningful one with the people that you're creating business with. And the thing that solidifies our business relationships are the personalities that we bring to the conversations. And those are the ones that we build through strong intelligence by understanding our emotions.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Couple of things come to mind. There's a phrase I've started using a lot, and I really believe in. I think this summarizes a little bit of what I heard from you. Is that, and the phrase that I use is that failure is my fastest path to success. And if I don't have an environment where I can make those failures to start to learn what my real value is, so ask Thomas Edison. How many times when you made the light bulb, they say, well, how did you get to that light bulb? He said, I figured out 1,000 ways not to make it first, so I could make it the 1,001st time. You're saying, let's create that place, and showing up as yourself allows you to give that space to build your value and understand what your value to the organization is. Adam, I'm gonna do unlike I did to Mohamed. I'm gonna give you a couple of seconds to think here about, because I want to ask you the same question. But I do want to recognize in the commentary here, we've got Demonice Hardy. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. She says yes, and we've got a number of others. Shamika, we've got Sophia, Janine. Sophia, we've got a number of people who've dropped comments in. Sophia has already chimed in, said emotion helps us connect with people and it builds strong relationships. I agree. We are emotional characters, and once we start to embrace that, it allows us to show up and add the true value. Adam, I'm going to flip that over to you. Is that the way you see it as well? Talk to me about emotions and that connection in that workplace.
Yeah, I think Mohamed hit a lot of it perfectly, and we've seen it in a day where artificial intelligence is everywhere and a lot of deals are made through text messages or emails. You lose that connection. And what we've started to see within our businesses, not only do you lose that connection with the customer, but people in general are just losing the emotional connection. So we do a lot to try and break down those walls and make sure that our team feels comfortable, that they can be open with each other and honest with each other. We're very strong on that as one of our core values. We want it to be a safe spot where they can just talk to each other without fear of sounding dumb or saying the wrong thing. Because I think that fear, as Mohamed was saying, stops you from being who you really are. And if you're not able to be your true self, you're not going to reach the pinnacle of who you should be. You're not going to be as successful. And at the same time, if we can't do that within our team, it's very hard for our team to do that with our customer base. So we push a lot that we're in the business of building relationships. And that is something that we have to do face to face. So yes, we have a lot of communication through emails or text messages and those platforms. But when our technicians are out in front of the customers, it's being able to have that one-on-one and open up to them to build the connection. And I think that's helped us a lot with our customer service. I think that's sometimes what people lack nowadays is that customer service, because they just read off a script or they're just hitting the boxes as opposed to actually building that relationship with their team members or with their customers. So I completely agree that having that emotion there and surrounding it with positivity only helps a business grow, only helps people grow personally. And that's really what we try and do within our business.
So in all of that, the thing that I heard that I think I'm actually going to write down, because I'm lucky I've got this recorded now. But I think this is actually something I'm going to discuss with my kids and within my company. And I think that the phrase, the words that you use, the sequence you said there's, if you can't fully realize your own emotions, you can't fully realize who you are. I mean, I've paraphrased a little bit.
Yes.
I love that, right? I talk about the superhero kind of tearing open the shirt so that you can see the Superman or Superwoman underneath. Until you've captured and kind of embrace those emotions, it doesn't mean you have to be emotional, right? But you have to understand it, be aware of it, and start to take some ownership of it. It allows you to become that Superman or Superwoman in your own regard. I really like that. So I've got a question for the audience here, and that is, do you feel you're in an environment where this idea of emotions it's safe to talk about emotions? Yes or no? And if you'd like to share more, I'd love to hear it. And while we're getting some responses there, Mohamed, I want to ask you another question. And that is, why do you think it is? Because look, our topic today is boosting workplace profitability and the power of positive emotion. Why do you think it is that emotion is a taboo subject? Why is it something that we don't talk about much? Why is it kind of pushed to the side?
Well, Adam, I think hit the nail on the head, and you mentioned it, because we associate emotions with being emotional, and we usually associate being emotional with not being straightforward or in control of what we say. We tend to look at how we interpret our emotions as a negative, because we associate emotions and our thoughts with who we are as opposed to how they make us feel. So if I'm feeling upset, it's different than saying I'm upset. So recognizing that emotions are temporary and they're justified. They are an extension of who you are, and they aren't who you are. So it's important to help people understand, well, you can experience this emotion and you can experience it in a minute, and it can impact how you behave. The better you understand this emotion and how it might trigger you or cause you to react or respond, will help you behave better in a situation. And when Adam was talking about, think of the services you provide, essential services. Your folks are going out to meet the person one-on-one, helping them, get rid of pests, right? They're not doing this electronically. They're going there in person. If an organization is going to scale and get bigger and expand and become something that's not just this organization you have down the street around the corner, but maybe in every state around the world, it has to be one where the employees have a certain level of agility, that they can act on the spot, they can make decisions without having to call and say, hey, Adam, I'm here with the client. I don't know what to do. Can you help me out, please? So when we have these frank conversations with our employees, when we boost their confidence with the ability to make clear decisions that help them understand, hey, the client is very angry here. They're being very emotional. How do I interpret that? Because it's not just about your own emotion, it's about the person you're interacting with. How do I interpret the emotions of the person who's telling me we sprayed their house last week and it didn't work out, and the ants are still taking over, we need to rectify the situation? How do I pause so that I can listen and understand and respond empathetically and provide a solution or find one with the client? When we help our employees make these sort of decisions, our businesses become more profitable because they're not making wrong decisions more often. We're building trust with them to make better decisions and to help them. Again, that agility is helping them help us grow the business. Because when clients say, I dealt with Adam's business and they are the best ones, I want, they tell their neighbors, they tell their clients, and all of a sudden you become the go-to. And you do that because you are seen as an employer who encourages agility, encourages the empowerment of people who work for you. And again, that comes down to understanding emotions and understanding that emotions are temporary things we feel, and we have to interpret them and how they allow us to respond, or how they enable us to respond and react to certain situations. So getting rid of that taboo, helping people understand that being emotional, being in a state of emotion is fine, but take them time to pause, to reframe what you're feeling, and then to help you make better decisions by understanding what emotion are you feeling and where do you want to go with that emotion.
So I've got some comments here, and thank you everyone for putting the comments. In the comments, I think they make this a richer discussion. Please ask if you got something that you would like some clarification. If you disagree with me, you're more than welcome to say, Vinay, I don't know if I agree with that. Let's talk it through. I think this is a safe space. Let's find it. Let's figure it out. What's the right perspective? So I want to read a couple of these comments. Prim says, human beings are undeniably emotional creatures driven by a complex tapestry of feelings that color our experiences and shape our decisions. And what I'm hearing there from that, Prim, is that this idea that when we come to the table, we bring these emotions along with us. You can try to deny it exists, but it's there. You might you can put, like an ostrich, you can stick your head in the sand if you'd like. It's still there. Paul says, customer service, doing business transactions, everything should be rooted in emotions. Thank you, Paul. I think I agree, and sort of I'm speaking for the panel. I believe we all do. Blessing says, increasing profitability can be directly impacted by fostering happy feelings in the workplace. This idea acknowledges the role that an employee's mental health, engagement, and general happiness play in their ability to work efficiently, creatively, and effectively. Adam, I'm gonna toss that to you. We've kind of talked about the emotions. We've talked about kind of that it's a taboo subject and that we really kind of do need to see that it exists. But profitability, right? I mean, for the longest time, businesses have been just driven by what is that bottom line? And I feel like there's almost an overemphasis of that in spite of everything else. Can you connect some dots for me here? I would love to hear how you think about this in terms of these emotions, these positive emotions in the workplace and profitability of a business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, we have service technicians who've been with us for 30 years. I think the business world in general, but especially our industry, was completely different 30 years ago. You showed up, you went to work, and you didn't complain. And if you complained too much, you were replaced. That's how it was 30 years ago. And what we've started to actually pay attention to now, and I think more people have, what is the cost of replacing someone? What happens with that? So it's not just that bottom line. You have to actually read through the numbers to understand what is going on. And for us, having a positive work environment with everyone, it makes people want to show up more. The call outs are less, the attitudes are better, which leads to happy customers. Happy customers lead to referrals. So it helps with the profitability, because now you're getting leads in just from being a nice person. And that costs nothing to be a nice person and to go that extra mile. We've had, it wasn't too long ago, one of our employees, there was a kid walking down a street and she was crying, and they ended up realizing that she missed her bus to school. Our employee walked the child to school. They didn't get anything out of that. They didn't need anything out of that. It meant that was them just being a good person. And that went viral. It went all over social media. People were commenting on it. The child's parents ended up finding out, said something. And just that positivity that got put out into the world made such a difference in so many people's lives. And I believe that positivity, it's just, if I'm positive to you, you're going to be more positive to someone else. And it just keeps festering within itself. And that's really what we need. Forget the business side of everything. It's what we need in our world. And that's going to make everyone happier, which just leads to a more profitable workplace.
Yeah. I'd like to ask a question of the audience, because I think there's been lots of really good nuggets that I've already been personally taken away from what Adam and Mohamed have been saying. And we've got some good comments. And Jury, you just put out a comment I'd like to read in a second here. But I'd like to ask everyone, is it clear to you that profitability and emotions or emotions directly affect the profitability that a company can have? I'm looking for a yes or a no. Please, because I'm asking lots of questions here, type in yes to profitability or no to profitability. I would love to see that. Either answer is perfectly okay, because hopefully in the next couple of minutes here, we're going to show some examples of that is, I want to see if that's very clear for you. Please type that in the comments. Jury, thanks for chiming in. He says, and I think I'm going to send this back to you, Adam, because I'd love for you to answer this. It says, how does short-term thinking tie in with what you mentioned about looking at the cost of replacing employees? Adam, I'll send it out to you, but Mohamed, Adam, either one of you can answer that. I would love what your answer.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, what I would say is, for us, again, in the past, we didn't look into why someone wasn't performing the way we wanted them to. It was just, they're no longer fit, and we moved on. So it was very short term and short minded to always place the blame on the employee. It wasn't, maybe something changed with what we did. We had a service technician who was great. We moved his area, and he got put into a different area, and his production and his attitude completely tanked. Okay, we realized what he was now doing wasn't working. It was taking longer for him to get home. There was other issues in his area. So we talked to him, and we moved him again, and he's been great. The same thing, even with hiring. Short term, when you're in need of new team members, a lot of times you might lower your standards, and you just hire someone because you need a body. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work. We really focus on our core values, having positivity, having the right people in the room. And if we have to wait another week, month to find that right person, in the end, that's the best solution, because you bring the wrong person in, without fail, it's not going to work in the end. So it's better to wait an extra little while and get that right person, make sure they align with who you are as a company and have that same feel that you want. And everyone's different. We're family oriented. That's who we are as a business. So that's what we look for. But if you go on to Wall Street, they want to be cutthroat and make the deals, and that's great. It's different people, and everyone has their own area where they can excel. But we don't want that cutthroat person, because it's not who we are as a business. Just like, again, if they want to be cutthroat making deals, they don't want the person that is really focused on family and being a part of a community and a team. So you really have to spend the time to find the right person. And if you believe you hired properly and something goes wrong, talk with that person, find out what's wrong. Maybe it's a personal issue that you can help them with, or something happened, and that can give you some insight onto how you can make your team better.
So thank you, Adam. I think that was a good answer. As a matter of fact, I think that was a good answer, because Jury gave you 4 hearts. And I just want to pat myself on the back because I brought Adam to the conversation. Thank you, Adam. And Jury, I appreciate you asking that question. I'm glad that hopefully checked that box there. Prim says, amazing input. Mohamed, positive emotions are closely linked to innovation and better problem solving. Blessing says, organizations may enhance teamwork, innovation, customer happiness, and ultimately financial success by developing positive workplace culture. Courtney says, yes. To that, I think the link between profitability and emotions, and Paul says yes, because emotions answers the question, what's in it for me? Thank you all for answering that. Mohamed, I want to give you a question in a second here, but here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to transition a little bit. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. When I was in 12th grade, I did, which is just a few years ago. I loved physics, and physics was great in terms of all the theory. But it wasn't until I actually got to crash billiard balls or, carts or whatever else together, crashing, breaking stuff, is when I really felt like I started to get physics. It became real. It became tangible for me. And so many times I've been to so many coaching sessions, leadership sessions, where I've seen the theory, but I haven't seen it in real life. I want to change that paradigm a little bit here. And I want to give you some visuals where I'm going to show you real answers from people and what they're sort of the emotional, how they're showing up. And I'd love to hear from Mohamed and Adam, kind of how that might affect what their role in the job is. So Janine, do you mind bringing that slide deck up for me and bring one of those visuals up? And while Janine is doing that for me, think about this, is that we're taking data from a company, in this case, a qualitative assessment. This is an assessment you can actually get for free on our website. We'll drop that link into the comments. So you can go and take this, give it to everyone in your organization, so you can see this same type of emotional makeup for your organization. So if you don't mind skipping forward a little bit for me, Janine here, All right, let me show you what this is. This is what we call an empathy graph, and this is how we visualize the data that you're going to see here about these emotions. So you can see where it says tech referring. There's the A plus, more effective. That's an organization. That's an individual who is doing really well on that dimension because there's lots of blue. They're out towards that further edge. That means they're really, really good. That's like an A plus on that test. You'll see over on the right-hand side around 3 o'clock, it says less effective. And you see that blue dot is closer into the center. That means they're not as effective on that one dimension. So tech referring, sales referrals of jobs back in, and this happens to be for a field service company, could be for really any industry. They're really effective at that stuff, not so effective on their efficiency as a person in that role. And that last area, it says right under employee experience, says the average. That's that dark gray area. And I think this is the most important part because when you see these graphs here in a second, you're going to see an individual, we'll change the names, you can kind of see sort of their emotional makeup and how they show up in their role or how they feel about their role and how that compares to the average, because I think that shifts the conversation that you can have with them as an individual. And again, we'll drop that link into the comments so that you can take that assessment and give it to everyone on your team and find out for yourself where people are. Janine, do you mind forwarding more slide? All right. So we're going to give you a bigger version of this in a second, but what you're seeing here in the center is we've got this person named Eric, and you can see that blue area in the middle. That kind of shows you where they're more effective. They're out towards the edge, and the gray areas where they're a little less effective. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Janine, I want to walk through this a bit more. All right. So let me explain this graph. Just walk through it one time. And then Adam and Mohamed, I'd love to hear sort of your thoughts here. And I'd love to hear from the audience, what comes up for you as you see this potentially as a leader when you see this person? Okay. So you can see up at the top, 12 o'clock, it says adaptability to change. Janine, is it possible to make that full screen just to make sure everyone can see that? So that the graph is full screen there, because it looks a little fuzzy here. But at the top, it says adaptability to change. You can see they're much more effective. They feel like they're very adaptable to change. Cross-team collaboration, they feel like they're very, very good at that. As we come down to about 4 o'clock, cultural competence development. They believe that there's a lot of cultural competence development within the organization. So they feel that the culture is good and it's moving in the right direction. At 6 o'clock, employee engagement in cultural activities. They feel like the people are engaged in their culture. They want to be part of that culture. Employee feedback in on cultural alignment. They feel like there's a little bit of a feedback loop here. The culture shifts when they say things. The employee perceptions of organizational culture. They believe everyone has a good point of view. So those are the things that they feel very, very strong about. Okay. But we start looking at, 10 o'clock, inclusion and belonging. At 11 o'clock, shared values and beliefs, cultural awareness and sensitivity at 2 o'clock, and at 5 o'clock, cultural integration. Not so strong there. I've thrown a lot out there, and I would like to give you a couple of seconds to digest as an audience who's kind of looking in and seeing this. Is there a story that emerges for you? Does it give you a sense of how this person, Eric, what they're thinking about their organization? I'd love for you to share what you're seeing from this graph. Does it give you any sort of clarity or story that's showing? Mohamed, I'll kind of maybe throw you on the spot here. I'll pick you first. What do you see? What, as a leadership coach of organizations, when you see something like this, what do you think about Eric? What's happening to Eric?
So let me just ask for clarification. The blue versus the gray.
Yep.
Can you just help me out here? Because it's the first time I'm seeing this.
Yeah. So blue is the individual. So that is Eric. Okay. Gray is the average person who has answered this assessment. So the places where the blue is outside of the gray, that means they feel much more strongly about that. Where the blue is inside, closer towards the center, inside of the gray, that means they feel less, they disagree with that statement compared to the average. Does that clarify?
Yes. So if I'm on the right path, the first thing that comes to mind here is when there's this big of a gap between the individual and the organization, there aren't enough conversations going on around these topics. And there isn't, to go back to what Adam was saying earlier, when you have that trust, when you have that level of comfort people will do things because they know that it aligns with the values. They'll go out of their way to walk a child to school because they know that they're not going to get in trouble for taking half an hour away from the work to do something. They have I would imagine the person that walked that young child to school has a greater alignment with the organizational values in Adam's company. Eric here seems to be, even while he feels stronger on certain elements, there isn't that correlation between the organization and the individual. I would think that when there is a greater correlation, we're going to see the dots coming together. There'll still be some variance, but people are not going to be afraid to have these conversations and to understand where are the gaps and what they need to do about them individually and at the organizational level.
Yeah. By the way, I got to thank you for that, Mohamed. Sophia had typed in a nice comment here, going back to this idea of connecting profitability and emotions. She said, yes, profitability in the sense that dealing with your employees in a way that makes them confident and courageous. This helps for productivity. And when they're confident, boom, they would follow the vision, hit the goals like it's there. This is profitability. Thank you. I think that actually sort of dovetails nicely into what you just said, Mohamed. If there is alignment with that culture, if there's congruence with that culture, they're going to be operating in a way that is in the best interest of not only the customers themselves, but the profitability of that company. Gosh, when you get all those three of those things, I mean, it's not buy one, get one free. It's buy one, get all three, right? You're getting all of those things at the same time. Adam, how does that thought sit with you?
Yeah, I agree. And, going back to this chart too, I think what Mohamed was saying was right. It seems off because of how high it is in some areas and how low it is in others. And I think there is maybe some lack of openness and conversation to try and figure it out. Because if your perception of the organizational culture is that high, then how is it that low with shared values and beliefs? It just doesn't line up. So maybe there's a misunderstanding there. Or maybe, this person thinks that the company wants to push the right stuff, but does the leadership really believe it? And maybe that's where that misconception is. So I think, with anything, it's easy to just go out and do your work and never sit down and see a situation like this and talk to that person and say, okay, we understand there's some problems here. What do you believe is going on? And you also have to have the culture where they feel comfortable. They feel comfortable to be honest with you. And if they're honest, you have to do something about it. If, a team member is willing to sit down and be open with you and say, yeah, I don't think you really believe what you're saying, you can't just get defensive. Listen to why they feel that way and make some changes and talk about it. And that's how you're going to start to see a circle as opposed to this shape that you have.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I will tell you, when I first looked at this, the thought that came to me, and I think, Adam, this is kind of what you're hinting at, is I think this person loves their coworkers, right? I think they get along well with their coworkers. Their coworkers are something that they get out of bed for. They probably have a really nice, tight-knit relationship, but it ends at that level. They may not feel like they can go up. And if we go back to what Sophia kind of mentioned in the comments here, Mohamed and Adam, what you've mentioned here, right? There's not that psychological safety. There's not that safety to make a mistake. They don't feel like their leadership gives them that space. So that person's going to be holding themselves back in terms of achieving that next level.
No, Vinay, it's something I'd like to add. I think what the takeaway from this too is when you apply this to organizations that don't yet have this alignment, it allows you to see what's missing. It allows you this will spark the conversation. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing. This is, I think, what you want to see. And I think that's why you're offering the service to your clients, because you want to come and see, well, if we have the shape and we don't have the circle, we see that there's, a big gap between individuals and organizations, or, the median. And you're never going to have a perfect circle, right, Adam? Like, people aren't going to agree. And we want that difference and diversity in thought and approach, but we also want the comfortable spaces to have these conversations and understand why these gaps exist, and how do more people speak up, and how do we see the gaps narrow. So I don't think we'll fully go to a situation where it's perfect and right, it's cyclical or a circle, but at least it's going to show us where we have some work to do and where to put our focus first.
I mean, the analogy that comes to mind here, and I would actually love to hear from our audience. Did you all see these stories that Mohamed, myself, and Adam kind of came up with? Are you all seeing these stories as well? Did you see a different story? Because I don't know that there's a right answer here. There's not a lot of context because we're just taking one limited snapshot of someone without information. Can you see those stories as well? Did you see a different story? Please type that into the comments. I'd love to hear what you're seeing. But the analogy I was going to make there is this idea that we say that we're going to be driving to Disney World. So we point our car going north or south, whatever the case may be. Throughout the course of that going north or south, we are making corrections to the steering wheel. It's never just I go north and that's all I do. We're going left sometimes, we're going right, we're going left, right, and then we take the wrong exit and we go on a roundabout. The point is we're constantly recorrecting. I think I just talked about my navigation skills right there. But it is always a course correct, and being able to see where your people are, how they're emotionally experiencing things, gives you that ability as a leader to course correct, not because things are wrong, but because you want to keep the car pointed in the right direction. Janine, I'd like to show another graph here because that's one individual. Let's look at a different person here. We're looking at someone named Jacob here. Slightly different picture. If we can zoom in on that one, let's talk about the places where this person is really strong. And we see that cross-team collaboration at 1 o'clock is very strong. Cultural awareness and sensitivity, they feel, is very strong. Shared values and beliefs over at about 11. And employee perceptions of organizational culture are strong. But employee engagement and cultural activities, gosh, that one seems like that one hurts a little bit. This person's not very confident about that at all. To the audience, love to hear what you're thinking. Adam, maybe I'll throw this, toss this one to you and see what you come up with first. What's going on here?
So I think the other interesting thing too is I would assume in theory these are from the same company.
Yes, these are from the same company.
So, you have two completely different points of view from people that are within this organization, which I think lends to some very interesting discussion as well. You have the previous person who, as you had said, Vinay, is very much in with the team, thinks the team is great, thinks that non-management level is there to be a team. This person doesn't really seem that way. It seems like they feel, they have some of the other stuff. Team collaboration is good, but they feel like the team's really not engaged within those activities. So what's going on there? And again, maybe they're not engaged in these activities because during those activities, that's when management is there. And if management is not the right group of people, then again, in spite of management, they're trying to just push through and make it the best that they can do. So I find this one really interesting because he's got a lot of high points, and even his low points aren't too bad. But that culture activity is really, really low compared to everything else.
Mohamed, what's going through your mind? What are you thinking? You're on mute. Mohamed, you're on mute.
We never have that happen on webinars, do we? I was making notes because I find this incredibly interesting for the conversations that it sparks. And, and while my gut feel say, oh, there's greater alignment here, but it just shows a different perspective, right? And I think when you start, and I don't know if you have this or you're going to lead into this, Vinay, but where you're able to capture, the various inputs from different employees all together and show against the organizational, right? And
Yep.
and I think that would also be a strong indication of how close are we at a global level, at a wider level, to be able to measure where the gaps are.
So let me play out a story, and I don't know if this is the case because I don't know the organization deeply enough at the level of these employees to tell you that. I've got a set of lenses, maybe step back a layer or two. But here's the narrative that starts to pop up in my mind, and I feel like I may have been in this scenario myself. Maybe that's why this is coming up for me here, is that when I join a company, sometimes the happiest day I've ever had when I was working for a company is the first day. And so many employers don't do a fantastic job of reciprocating. Maybe that's a different podcast. But this person, I feel like, is bought in, right? They're drinking the Kool-Aid. They love this vision. They love what their purpose is. They're all bought in, but they're feeling like not everybody else is. Come on, guys, let's all do this. Come on, gals, let's do this. We can do this together. They're trying to rally the troops, but everyone else is kind of just sitting on their hands. I suspect this could lead to a level of frustration for this person, and maybe, gosh, could lead to a level of contempt, a little bit of just disappointment, anger. Are you all seeing that? How that could potentially play out? Mohamed, you're shaking your head. I'm kind of curious what you're.
I am, because come back to what you were saying earlier about emotional, right? So now we see how when we don't have this alignment, people are going to start getting emotional. And here I want to be careful with the word emotional, because emotional is not a bad thing, right? So
That's
if we see people are emotional, they're expressing how they're feeling in the moment and what the reaction are to a particular situation. But perhaps there's going to be what the staff who've been there longest versus the person who's just going through the honeymoon stage. There's probably more negative emotion than there is positivity being spread, right? So again, that lack of alignment is going to fester with a lot of negativity, and people are going to feel that negative emotion. So and what happens when people do that? They start reacting in ways that are not consistent with the person who's being onboarded. So when we get emotional in a negative way, we're going to react as opposed to respond. We're going to feel angry. We're going to lash out. We're going to say things that we don't mean. We're going to get defensive. And as a leader, when you start exhibiting these behaviors, people don't trust you. They don't want to be around you. They avoid you. So when there's a lack of organizational alignment with our own values, what you're going to do is you're going to bring those negative emotions to the forefront, and it's going to cause a lot of toxicity, and that just rips away at the psychological safety. And something that people have been talking about in the past couple of years, with the pandemic, is the lack of psychological safety. Well, I think this helps point to some of those reasons. So
yeah. I'll tell you all a quick story, and Adam, I don't know if you were about to say something there, but I'll tell you a quick story. I went to one of these fast casual Tex-Mex restaurants recently. We'd ordered some food, went sat down, and I don't know, the kitchen staff there were behind the counter, trying to build some, building foods and the custom orders for everyone. I'm two people back in line before I get to my order, and one of the people there clearly was not happy with how things were going in the organization. Pulls the pita bread out, or the wraps, pulls it out and just kind of slams it on the counter next to the person. I got to tell you, I stepped out of line and I walked away because my kids were saying, "Hey, I want something else to eat." I kind of was like, you know what, guys, let's just go home and get some ice cream or something like that instead. I didn't get an extra quesadilla that night because that person was a little ticked off. I didn't want that person spitting in my food. I mean, that's the thing we're always worried about, right? That person's ticked off at somebody else. I can't do anything about it. But people notice those things. They probably never saw it. But, someone like this just says, just kind of throws their hands up in there and says, you know what, it doesn't matter what I do. Nobody here, cares as much as I do. You're losing customers because of them, at least in my case. Adam, how does that sit with you?
Absolutely. I've been in a very, very similar situation. And what I'd be interested to know is if this person is newer to the organization, and I think it was you guys kind of both hit on it, and how will this chart look if they answer the same questions monthly for the next 6 months? I have a feeling everything is going to start going down. And the worst part is when you have someone who's all in and they're a great team member and they start to feel that way, you never gain that person back. It's almost worse than the person who came in with a little negativity that you can pull out. The people that are excited and are all in, when their spirit gets broken, which is what this seems like could happen, it's a hard thing to bring them back. And it's tough because these are the people you want in your organization that believe in what you're doing and want to push it forward. So, if what you're saying is true, Vinay, I think that's something that, again, from a company standpoint, you got to look at that and say, all right, what else can we do to get more people to feel the way he feels, which would then hopefully then also bring that 9 higher up because you have more people involved. So I think that's a very interesting point that you took that I just didn't even think of.
Yeah.
And if I
So,
can add something to that too, Vinay.
yeah, please do.
So, when you talk about profitability, well, the leader, the CEO, isn't there all the time. Here's the thing that we miss so often. It's the executives who tend to make the decisions that drive where our company goes and how we behave and the values and so forth. But it's the people who get the work done every day, the individual contributors, the supervisors and managers who actually operationalize the vision and get it rolling, and we do the work. But if the restaurant owner who's probably not there when the person is slapping the quesadilla and doing whatever they're doing and not supposed to be doing with it, cause you to walk away, and the customer behind you walk away, and then nobody's coming to that business. Guess what? You can have the best vision, you can have the best leadership, but the people on the front lines aren't behaving in alignment with your proclaimed vision, because you're also not supporting them. You're not having these conversations. There's toxicity. People, down on the chain of command aren't feeling that level of involvement. And, that's why I think when it comes to servant leadership and you want to spread that positivity, turn the triangle over, the leader should really be at the bottom supporting everyone. And, we don't view it like, well, the leader's at the top. No, the leader's at the bottom. And the reason is you've got that wolf at the front, the wolf at the back, and that's how you keep the pack together. And so the leader has to be forward thinking and having that vision, but also foundational in holding everybody up. And because at the end of the day, it's the workers, the people who are putting your vision into operation, who bring in the business or cause you to lose it. And so if everybody on the front line is negatively emotionally charged and reacting to every bad thing that happens in the community, in society, online, in the workplace, you can have the best business model, but it ain't going anywhere because people don't behave in alignment with your vision. So
Janine, I'd like to bring us back because I'd like to get some closing comments here, really from everybody. I think for me, I mean, for one, Adam, I had that one quote that I think I'm going to put on my wall here about you can't really realize yourself unless you've understood your own emotions. I think I've always thought like that, but just hearing you say that was kind of a take-home message or a definite point, a nugget for me. I'd love to hear. I mean, I've had so many comments here, which is what I really love here. I've been struggling a little bit to try to make sure I'm reading some of these comments here and also listening to you all as well. I've heard from Shofu as well as Sophia. Thank you so much for your commentary. Shofu, you're welcome. I'm glad you are part of this conversation. Sophia, she says, I agree. And Shofu says, again, I'll say there are two major customers, your staff and the clients. I'd love to hear from the audience, Shofu, Prim, Blessing, Sophia. I would love to hear what nuggets you heard today. I'd love to see how that compares with some of the things maybe I would have gotten. And I want to turn it over to Adam and Mohamed. Adam, I'll go with you first. Give me like a 90-second, one or two bullet points. What are if someone could take home some messages from this conversation today? How would you summarize that for them to maybe take home and start to maybe put up on their wall and maybe to practice or lean into?
Just to be open with your team and not just say that, actually live it. So when you're talking with your team, be open with them. Tell them some of the struggles even you're having. Or I've had really open conversations with every level of employees that we have about struggles I'm having with them, things that I'm concerned about, things going on even within our company. Because the more that your team understands what's going on, the more they'll buy in. What we've seen from our team is the more they're kept in the dark, the worse it is. The more they overreact to everything, the less understanding they have. So, giving everyone some ownership, holding them accountable. People do like that. You want to talk about little quotes. I talked to one of my peers who owns a pest control company last week, and he said, we have all of our managers. It's not you win or lose a situation. You win or learn. So it's all about having the ownership to make the decision. And you know what? You're not going to always make the right decision, but neither do I, and neither does anyone else. So make those decisions and learn from them. And I think if you can get a team that believes that you're going to start soaring, and then the profitability comes right with it. So just having your team know that it's okay to make a mistake. As you said earlier, you're not going to get in trouble for doing something that is good for people. Obviously having them understand within reason, but making sure they all are on the same page. And for us, it's truly a top-down approach. And, like what Mohamed said, maybe it should be a bottom-to-top approach. But I treat all of our leaders and management the way I want them to then treat their teams. So, you got to make sure it flows straight through, because I don't get to see all of the team members as often as I want to. But if our managers react and act the way that the ownership wants, then that family feel and that dynamic will continue to stay there even as we grow and scale.
Yeah. Mohamed, your 2 minutes. Give me.
Well, I'm going to see if I can do it in 20 seconds. I'm going to mirror what Adam said here, and what my takeaway is. It's something that I share with clients often. If you let them weigh in, they will buy in. And Adam, you so eloquently said it by giving the examples that, accountability is involve people in those conversations. If you let them weigh in, they will more readily buy in. So that's the first nugget of wisdom that I hope, I took away from people that I speak to. This is just something I've come up with. But one thing I have come up with that I use often is role model, don't role play. So want people to, to build trust. If you want them to get things done effectively on the front lines, and you want to increase profitability and make them feel comfortable and agile, you as a leader, role model, don't role play. Take those values, take that level of accountability, and start with yourself by leading by example. So role model, don't role play. And if you let them, weigh in, they will more readily buy in.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Gosh, time went really quickly. It amazes me, especially when we've got topics that are so, I think, germane to up-leveling leadership today. How I think we've kind of gone through a little bit of a journey here in terms of how we can start to look at some of these emotions and how they touch profitability, how it helps you sell another quesadilla or not, right? And how you can potentially see it. But I do want to say thank you to a couple of people who made this thing happen. First of all, we have an audience here: Sophia, Shofu, Jury, Prim, Blessing. A number of you have chimed in. Jury, thank you for being part of it and making it a great live. Shofu, thank you for sharing your comments. And Sophia, throughout the course of this, I think I've gotten some great insights from you and kind of echoed some fantastic sentiments. Thank you for chiming in. Thank you for being part of this. And hopefully this was useful for you. Look at that link if that assessment will help. Would love to help you walk through that and understand what's happening in your company. Number 2, Adam and Mohamed. Gosh, I love the fact that we all think on a very similar level here and how we approach these things. It blows my mind. Sort of that heart set. The 3 of us from 3 different backgrounds kind of have started to see this, and I think that's why we've seen all the success that we have. It's about that heart set. So Adam and Mohamed, thank you so much for sharing your time, your experience, and your perspectives on things. And last but not least, Janine and Prim, who have been kind of running this whole thing. Thank you all. They're the ones who make this all happen. Janine, Prim, thank you so much. Thank you all, everyone. Please put your comments in. Adam and Mohamed, thank you so much for spending some time and taking time out of your busy days to share with all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
My pleasure. Take care, everyone.